Hello, it's Keith here, and this is lesson 5 of the platform-specific series of my 8086 assembly programming tutorials. We're looking at MS-DOS again today, and we're going to be learning about reading the keyboard. Now, usually in my tutorials, I like to go straight to the hardware and read things directly, but unfortunately, doing that with the keyboard in this case is outside of my ability. On the old 8-bit systems, often the keyboard lines were connected to some ports and we could directly probe those ports one by one and read each of the keys. Now my understanding is that's not actually possible on the MS-DOS systems, and that there's actually a chip in between the processor's hardware and the keyboard hardware that is encoding all of the signals anyway, and it's not easy to directly get that data. So what we have to do is read in bytes that chip has processed and is holding for us in a buffer. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using an interrupt. We're going to be using interrupt 16, which allows us to access the keyboard buffer, and we're going to learn how to read in keys from that. So not the ideal way I'd like to do things, but the only plausible way I think we're going to be able to do them, unfortunately. So that is the way we're going to be using. Okay, now we're going to be using essentially 3 different commands today, all of which are in interrupt 16, and the command is specified by the AH register when we run interrupt 16. Now the first one is command 0, and this will read a key from the buffer, taking that key out of the buffer. Now this command will basically see what key is waiting. The problem with this command, if we're writing a game, is that if no key is waiting, it will just sit there and wait until one is waiting. That's going to be a bit of a problem for our game, unless our game is very slow, like a text adventure. So we've got another command, command 1, AH equals 1, and this will test and see if any keys are waiting, and it will set the Z flag according to if a key is waiting, and it will also read what that key is. But it won't take the key out of the buffer, so if we run it again, the same key will be waiting for us every time. Again, not entirely ideal. They seem to be making things quite challenging for us, but what we can do is see if any keys are waiting with command 1, and then use command 0 to remove that key from the buffer, and the two together will leave no delay if nothing's waiting, and it will empty the buffer of that key. We have a third command, command 2, AH equals 2, and that will test the other keys that can be on while other keys are pressed, such as shift, control, also caps lock and insert and things like that. So quite a few keys there, and that could be quite handy for us for using as a fire button and things like that, because there are some issues with using the keyboard to read in directions and things, which we'll discuss later. So those are the ones we're going to be basically using. Now I sort of said essentially 3 commands, but actually there's another 3. Now the commands 0, 1 and 2 are the XT versions, the classic versions, and later on some AT versions were added, and these are 10, 11, 12 in hexadecimal. Now these allow us to read a few extra keys. There's not a whole lot of difference, but there is a few extra keys that were added to the keyboard in the later revision that the earlier commands can't read. Specifically F12 is one we will be testing to see, because that can't be read by the XT commands, but basically, generally speaking, they're pretty interchangeable. Now, when we use the commands for reading the buffer and seeing if the keys are waiting, we will get 2 results back. We will get the ASCII result, the key itself. So for example, a space would be hexadecimal 20, character 32, and we will also get a key code. Now the key code is probably going to be better for us if we're writing a game, because the key codes aren't affected by the shift keys, whereas the ASCII codes are. So if the caps lock key is pressed, the A key will return a different ASCII code, but the key code will not change. Okay, well anyway, that's enough talk. Let's go over to our example code and let's have a look. Now we're just going to run this first, because I think you're going to need to see what's going on, and then we will discuss what the code is actually doing. Okay, so here we've got this simple example here. You can see what we're doing is we're reading from the keyboard, and we're showing this monitor over and over again here. Now, if I press down the space key here, you can see that AX here has changed to 3920 in hexadecimal. 39 is the key code for the space key, and 20 is the ASCII for a space. That's character 32 there. So AX is loading our keys there. If I press the shift key, you'll see that BX has now changed to a 1 here. If I press the control key, you can see it's changed to a 4. And if I press control and shift together, it's changed to a 5. Now, if I press the A key, you will see that AX has changed to 1E61. If I press shift and A, you will see it's 1E41. And if I release shift, you can see it's changed to 1E61. The point I'm making here is those ASCII keys are being changed by the shift, but the key codes are not. So AH is the key code and AL is the ASCII there. So this is what our example is doing. It's basically just reading in keys and showing them to the screen there. Okay, so we're going to go over the code and we're going to discuss what it's doing. So we've got this main loop here. I'm not going to discuss the text drawing routines here. If you need to see how text is drawn to the screen, see the simple series please, because that's what this was based on, the Hello World example. So what we're going to do first is we're going to test the state of the control keys. So we're using command 2 here, so we load 2 in AH here, and then we run interrupt 16 in hexadecimal here, and that will return the state of the shifts and the controls in the AX register. But we're going to need the AX register for the later stage, so we're going to move that into BX for our monitor later on. The monitor will show them to the screen here. So that's what we're doing. And next what we're going to do is we're going to test to see if a key is waiting. So we're going to use command 1 for this. Now it does return the keys, but remember it doesn't remove anything from the buffer. So we need to remove things from the buffer, otherwise we'll just keep getting the same value back every single time, which will be bad. So we're using this, we're running int 16 again, and then we're seeing if the Z flag is set. If the Z flag is set, then there's no key, so we're going to jump over here. And that's just going to show the monitor and effectively show the state of the control keys. If a key is waiting, then what we're going to do is we're going to use command 0 with int16h again, and that will read the key from the buffer. Now I will just show you what happens if I remove either of those two commands. And I'm also going to disable this clear buffer command here, and if I run this again, and I press A now, well, you can see it's stuck. It's stuck with that because every time the buffer is read, the same key is waiting. So what we need to do is we need to remove that key like this. So now when I press A, you can see it's clearing. Now there is a problem where if I press and hold the key for a long time, the buffer will become very full. And so I've got this command called clear buffer down here. And all that is another routine using the same kind of commands. I've actually used the AT versions here instead, just because why not? And what that's doing is it's clearing any extra keys out of the buffer that haven't been read in this time, because I've got a delay loop here, and that's meaning that things are a little bit slower and the buffer might get full. So we're just clearing down any extra keys here. Now that's what happens if we don't remove the key from the buffer. But if I remove this test command here, what will happen now? Well, you can see we've got no output at all. If I press a key A here, you can see that's outputted there. If I press a space, you can see we're getting the key presses, but we're waiting each time. And say if you were writing a text adventure, that would probably be very good. But if you're writing something resembling an action game, you want the action to continue while you're waiting for the player to press a key. So not very good there. Now these here are reading with the XT commands. The clear buffer is using the AT version, but that's not showing any output to the screen. So I'm just now going to press the F10 key here, and the AX has been set to 44 here in AH, and that can show that the F10 key has been read in. But if I press the F12 key, well, there's no response there, and that's because I'm using the XT version, and the F12 key didn't exist. It wasn't invented back then, I guess. So if I change these to the AT versions here, basically adding hexadecimal 10 to the value in AH, and I run again, we get the exact same functionality here, but now if I press the F12 key, you can see it's indeed being read in just fine there. So now we are able to read in the keys from that key there. So that's the important thing, that we need to make sure we're using the right version. As I say, generally speaking, the XT version will be just fine, but if you want those extra keys, the AT version is what you want. I kind of enjoy using the classic versions just because we're using DOS, why not, you know. I enjoy the CGA for the same reason, to go right back to the earliest version. Now, just as a little bit of a bonus here, I've got an alternate version here. What we're doing here is we are using the same kind of thing. We are reading in from the keyboard here, and what we are doing this time is we are testing the key presses using the key codes, and we're looking for cursor up, down, left and right, and also space and enter here. And we're using these, and we're setting 1 bit within our B register here, and we're going to effectively show these to the screen. Now what this is effectively going to do is it's going to give us a single register which is going to contain all of the directions read in, space and enter, and also the controls and shifts. And the idea of this is if you were trying to write a little game and you wanted an object that the player could control and move around the screen and maybe shoot and things, you know, a simple little game like Grime, for example, the game I wrote before, you're going to want to read in some cursors and some keys that you might be able to use for fire, like space and enter. Also the control keys, which we'll see might be a lot better for you if you're trying to do that kind of thing. So that's what we're going to be doing here. Now it's important to notice there's a difference in the way this code works. This command is going to read in from the buffer, and it's going to keep reading in from the buffer and change the byte that is returned as many times as the buffer changes. So if 2 keys are in the buffer, they are both going to be set as bits in the returned register. Now if I just fire this up here, okay, now we changed the view slightly. I've changed the screen mode, I've lowered the resolution, and it's also now going to stay at the top here. If I press up, you can see bit 0 is set there, which is a 1. If I press down, bit 1, which is 2, bit 3 is left, bit 4 is right, space, and enter, you can see there, and also the controls and shifts are being loaded in to AH there. So I've got all these directions. Now here is the problem. When I wrote this, I was thinking that if I pressed up and left, I would get a value of 5, which you did briefly see there, but it seems when I hold them down, I only get one of the keys, which certainly wasn't what I expected and wasn't what I wanted. I was assuming they would both be read in and both be set as bits, but it seems like that only happens for a very brief instant, and when they're held, it doesn't work. So if there's something I'm doing wrong there, I'm not quite sure what it is. I think that's possibly just a limitation of reading in the keyboard in this way. So not ideal there, but we will be actually looking at joystick reading later on. So if you need proper directional control for a game, that might be better for you. But I thought this was just a fun little bonus as a way of showing how you could process that key input and turn it into something that's usable for a game. Okay, well anyway, that's all we're going to be covering for this lesson. As I say, we're going to be coming back with some more reading routines. We're going to be looking at the joystick next time, and we're even going to look at the mouse in a later lesson as well. If you've enjoyed this, please hit the like button, because if you hit the like button, YouTube will recommend the video to more people, and hopefully they'll like it as well, which helps me out quite a bit. And if you want to see more, please subscribe, because it keeps my motivation up to keep working on these videos. I wrote these videos on my day off from work on Tuesday, and obviously if you're spending your spare time writing them, it's good to know people are getting some benefit from them. So please subscribe to the channel if you do. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. Go to the website, download the content, the source code and things, and have a go with it. And if you can make any use of it, great. Thanks for watching today. If you've enjoyed this video today, please consider supporting my content. It takes 20 to 30 hours a week to keep making these videos. It's basically all I do when I'm not doing my day job, and it's only through the support of my patrons and the other sponsors that I'm able to continue justify doing it, essentially. You can back me on Patreon. I post a weekly update with the latest work on the current projects I'm doing. You can see one here, and also the newest videos. There's a large backlog of videos that are currently only available to the patrons, although they will all be available to everyone later on. And also it's the backers who I ask when it comes to making decisions on how to change the content in the future, what new content to create and things like that. You can see there was recently a survey of the backers, so I can plan next year's content. As well as Patreon, you can now become a member of my channel on YouTube. There's a join button you should see just below this video. You can use that. YouTube backers get the same content as Patreon. I just post it through the YouTube interface instead of the Patreon one. It's the same content every week. Also, if you prefer, you can go to my Teespring store and you can get some Chibi Akuma's merchandise or some Learn ASM merchandise if you prefer, if that's how you would like to back me. Links for all three are in the description of this video below. Anyway, whatever you decide to do, I hope you've really enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching today, and goodbye.